What does a walled-off society and a debunked Japan have in common? More than you think, way less than you know. Yo, what's going on tonight here? Welcome back to another anime comparison. The show where I overthink fictional worlds so you don't have to. Today's episode, we're diving headfirst into Code Geass and Attack on Titan. Two shows where rebellion isn't just a theme, it's basically a lifestyle. We're breaking down characters, the revolution, and of course, the cost of freedom. Before the world knew him as a revolutionary, the loose Lamprous was just another student. Or at least, that's what he wanted everyone to think. A charming, polite, top-of-the-class genius at Ashford Academy, with perfect hair, perfect manners, and the social energy of a guy who's constantly pretending he's not planning world domination in between math tests. Luce blends into school routine like it's a game, which for him, it kind of is. He plays chess, flirts with manipulation, and always seems one step ahead of everyone, not because he cares about winning, but because he has to. For the Luce, control isn't a quirk, it's survival. There's something tragic about knowing he moves through his fake life. He laughs with his friends, helps his sister, smiles through the pain, but he always looks somewhere else, somewhere far beyond the safety of those walls. You can tell this isn't a kid satisfied with peace. He's angry but quiet about it. The kind of quiet that makes you nervous. He hides that bitterness behind the polite, perfect Lamprous persona, but deep down, the Luce isn't content being a bystander in a broken world. He's just waiting for the right opportunity to do something about it. Basically, this is what happens when you mix a straight-A student with a grudge and just enough free time to cause international incidents. He's calculating, but not yet corrupted. You can still see glimpses of the boy who cares about justice, who wants to be perfect, who wants to protect Nonali, who still believes intelligence can outsmart cruelty. Before the masks, before the rebellion, there was a kid who genuinely thought he could fix the world by outsmarting it. Before he was a god, a devil, or whatever the internet is calling him this week, Eren Yeager was just a kid with an anger issues and a dream that sounded simple enough to see the world beyond the walls. That's it. No world domination, no chessboard strategy, just a 12-year-old declaring war on the concept of confinement. From the start, Eren is pure emotion. Where the Luce calculates, Eren combusts. He's less of a planner and more of a human Molotov cocktail. Light the fuse and throw him at the problem. Hope something survives. Every scene with Eren in the early seasons feels like a group project where one guy insists on doing everything himself and then screams at everyone when it fails. But underneath all the yelling is something real, this burning sense of injustice. He's born into a cage, and the worst part is that no one else seems to mind. People accept the walls, the fear, the routine, but Eren can't. Eren physically can't. It's not just about fighting titans, it's about fighting the ideas of humans should accept their limitations. He's idealistic to a fault. He doesn't understand the politics, the corruption, the weight of history. He just knows that freedom shouldn't need permission, and that's what makes him so dangerous, so human. When his mother dies, his naive dream twists into an obsession. Freedom stops being a wish and becomes a declaration of war. From that moment on, Eren isn't chasing peace, he's chasing meaning. Every titan he kills, risk he takes, it's all him trying to prove that his plan had a purpose. Eren isn't the smartest, or the calmest, or even the most heroic protagonist, but he's raw, he's real. He represents the unfiltered human response to obsession, the scream, to fight, to destroy what cages you, even if you don't know what comes next. Before you can understand the Lucid Rebellion, you need to understand the world that built it. Welcome to Area 11, formerly known as Japan, currently known as We Colonize You. Get over it. After being conquered by the Holy Britannian Empire, Japan wasn't just stripped of its name, it was stripped of its identity. The people are no longer Japanese, they're now 11s, because nothing screams benevolent occupation like rebranding the entire population with a number. Imagine losing a war and your conquerors are just like, congratulations, you're now Region 7 Canadian. Yeah, no thanks. Area 11 is a world divided, shining skyscrapers for the Britannians, crumbling ruins for everyone else. What makes Area 11 so brilliant as a setting isn't just its cruelty, it's how polite the cruelty looks. Everyone is dressed up in elegance, order, and rules. It's not chaos, it's structured oppression. A society that looks civilized right up until you realize it's built entirely on the suffering of others. This isn't a world that needs saving, it's a world that needs rewriting. That's exactly why the Loose becomes who he is. He's not fighting random villains, he's fighting a system that turned humanity into a class schedule. In a way, Area 11 is Loose's first chessboard. Every decision he makes, every lie he tells, every move toward rebellion, it's all reaction to the world that taught him order matters more than people. Area 11 isn't just a setting, it's a mask before the mask. The perfect illusion of peace that hides the cost of control. It's the Empire's masterpiece and the Loose's reason to destroy it. On the surface, life inside the walls looks peaceful. A quiet medieval utopia where everyone minds their business, bakes bread, occasionally gets eaten alive. Welcome to the world of Attack on Titan. These massive walls standing between humanity and execution, Wall Maria, Wall Rose, and Wall Cena. They sound like your local Aunt Squad, but together they make the world's most ambitious gated community. Wall Maria is the outermost wall, represents hope. It's where people dream big, build homes, and pretend they're not one accident away from being Titan snacks. Wall Rose, the middle wall, is survival mode. It's where the displaced citizens end up. Everything goes wrong. Think of it like humanity's middle class housing if mortgage was PTSD. And then there's Wall Cena, home to the government, the nobility, and all the secrets that could unravel the world. It's luxury, corruption, and denial all rolled into one. Basically the anime version of if you can afford to ignore the apocalypse, good for you. The walls aren't just structures, they're philosophy in concrete form. They represent control through containment, a world where the illusion of safety matters more than the truth. Because if people feel safe, they won't ask questions, and they never look beyond the walls. They'll never realize who built them or why. And that's what eats at Eren Yeager from the start, because to him, these aren't barriers of safety, they're shackles. He doesn't see protection, he sees permission. Permission to exist, permission to live, permission to breathe. And the idea that someone else gets to decide that for him, yeah, that's where his story starts. The walls stand as humanity's last defense, but it's also the biggest lie. And when you finally see what's outside of them, you realize the truth was never about monsters beyond the walls, it was about the monsters inside the walls. Every great revolution needs an edge, something that turns a regular person into a symbol. For the Loose, that edge comes from a glowing eye and a voice that makes people do whatever he says. I'm of course referring to the Geass, the power of kings, the ultimate do what I say cheat code. And given to him by a mysterious woman named C2, or CC. I'm just gonna call her C2. The Geass is simple but terrifying. Absolute obedience, one command, one target, one time, no takebacks. It's not flashy like fireballs or lasers, it's psychological warfare in its purest form. A weapon that turns your words into bullets. Meanwhile, over an Attack on Titan, power doesn't whisper, it screams. The Titan sifting ability is the polar opposite of the Geass. It's not about control, it's about chaos. No speeches, no commands, pure destructive instinct made of flesh. Where the Geass is a tool of the mind, Titan power is a curse of the body, inherited through blood, activated through pain, and carrying the memories of everyone before you. It's not something you use, it's something that uses you. Eren didn't ask to become a Titan sifter. His dad is him with the world's worst inheritance plan. Hey son, I left you the basement key, my research, and the ability to turn into a skyscraper with accuracy. The Titan power is primal, all rage and emotion, barely contained by human will. The power that demands a toll every time it's used, and it doesn't care about morality or intention. You can use it to save people or destroy them. And Attack on Titan, these two ideas tend to blend together pretty fast. Both the Geass and the Titan shifting represents the same question asked in different ways. What happens when you give a broken world absolute power, hand it to someone desperate enough to try and change it? The Luce uses his power to bend the world to his logic. Eren uses his to break the world to his will. One commands, the other consumes, and both end up ruled by the very thing they thought they controlled. Every great story about a revolution needs someone to ask, hey, maybe committing 47 war crimes before breakfast isn't the best way to save humanity. In Code Geass, that's Suzaku, and in Attack on Titan, it's Armin. Two guys who would probably get along great until one of them tries to arrest the other for terrorism. Suzaku is the ultimate contradiction, a Japanese soldier who fights for the empire that conquered Japan. It's like joining the Death Star to reform the Empire from inside. Noble idea, terrible workplace environment. He genuinely believes the system can be changed without destroying it. Where the Luce wants to burn the world and start over. Suzaku wants to clean it from the inside out, scrubbing away the corruption one impossible mission at a time. But Suzaku's idealism comes at a cost. The more he tries to stay pure, the more he ends up complicit. He becomes a knight for Britannia, fighting its wars, upholding its lies, all while telling himself it's for peace. Suzaku represents the tragedy of morality in a corrupt world. I believe you can stay clean while standing in the mud. And as the story goes, we learn what Lelouch and Suzaku both share. They'll destroy themselves to create a world they believe should exist. Meanwhile, over at Attack on Titan, we have Armin Arlet, the kid who just wanted to see the ocean and somehow ended up committing international war crimes. Armin starts as the heart of the trio, gentle, brilliant, constantly terrified. He's the brain to Eren's brawn, the empathy to Mikasa's stoicism. If Eren is humanity's rage, Armin is humanity's reasoning. But here's the cruel thing about Attack on Titan. Reasons don't survive without blood on its hands. By the time he becomes the colossal titan, Armin's idealism has been completely devoured. He's the one making hard calls, sacrificing people, lying for the quote greater good, all while still trying to believe he's different from the monsters on the outside of the walls. Suzaku and Armin are cut from the same cloth, the kind of people who want to save the world and keep their hands clean, but the world laughs in their faces and forces them to bloody their hands. They both end up realizing that ideals mean nothing without sacrifice. Suzaku sacrifices his identity to become the symbol of peace. Armin sacrifices his innocence to preserve what's left of humanity. Two moral men forced into immoral roles, both trying to prove kindness can survive in an apocalypse. You can tell a lot about an anime hero by the people who love them, especially when those people spend most of their time getting emotionally wrecked because of it. For Eren, he had his childhood friend and stepsister Mikasa Ackerman, but for Lelouch, he has Shirley and Colin. Even C2, but we won't dive into the harem part of that anime. Mikasa's love for Eren isn't just romantic, it's primal. It's devotion, carved into her DNA, literally and emotionally. From the moment he saved her as a child, she's been his shadow, his sword, his shield, his silent guardian. She doesn't love Eren because he's kind or gentle or even particularly sane. She loves him because, in her eyes, he is home. The last piece of the world that made sense before it all fell apart. It's less of I love you and more of a if you die, I'm declaring war on God himself. But that love becomes a curse. Eren keeps running further towards freedom. and Mikasa keeps chasing him, not realizing that sometimes the hardest way to love someone is to finally let them go. Mikasa's story is tragedy of unconditional love in a world that demands conditions. Sees the human cost of Aaron's dream, the person left holding the red scarf when the war ends. Now that we'll go over to Code Geass, we've got Colin up first, half Britannian, half Japanese, full-time freedom fighter, part-time Lelouch therapist. Colin's relationship with Lelouch is passion meets principle. She believes in Zero, who fights for justice. But she also falls for the boy behind the mask, even if she doesn't understand him. Basically, she's trying to figure out if she's in love with the revolutionary or the manipulative chess nerd and eyeliner. Colin's love is fierce, idealistic, the kind of love that tries to save someone from themselves. She represents rebellion's heart, loyalty, fire, and belief, but Lelouch, ever the tactician, weaponizes even that affection. He keeps her close enough to fight for him, but never close enough to know him. Where Mikasa's love is bound by fate, Colin's love is bound by choice. Both are loyal, but only one gets to decide what loyalty means. And then there's Shirley. Sweet, normal, painfully innocent Shirley. The one that loved Lelouch before the mask, before the lies, before the bloodshed. Shirley represents everything Lelouch could have had if he didn't pick the path of vengeance. She's the reminder that there was once a version of him who could laugh, flirt, and just live. But of course, through Code Geass fashion, that means he's basically marked for tragedy the moment he smiles too brightly on. Her first love isn't revolutionary, it's that's what makes it. He wants to be okay, but in the story where no one gets to be happy, it's the choice. Love at show how love works. We have the love why we love they're obsessed with the world's truth, not their own love. The women who love them, they remind us they're still every story about power has been represents the burden of immortality, the loneliness of living too long and believing in too many false prophets. She's been worshipped, hunted, loved, and even discarded by every era she's ever lived in. The Geass turns people into monsters, and she is the one who has to keep watching it happen over and over and over again. Imagine being immortal, and every few centuries you go, maybe this guy with unsolved parental trauma will fix humanity. Spoiler alert, he never does. With Lelouch, C2 finally finds someone different. Not a servant or a master, but a partner. Someone who understands her desire for meaning, their bond, their love. It's not just friendship, it's mutual recognition. Two people tired of pretending they aren't monsters. C2 isn't there to guide Lelouch towards redemption. Caesar is there to remind Lelouch that his soul is still his own, even when the world calls him a demon. Sees internal loneliness wrapped in sarcasm and green hair, the calm center of Lelouch's storm. Now flip that idea upside down, and you get Ymir, the girl who started it all in Attack on Titan, the original sinner, the first Titan, and quite possibly the most tragic character in that anime, who said fewer than 20 words. Unlike C2, Ymir didn't choose her power. She was a slave, crushed under the weight of an empire that saw her as a tool. When she stumbled upon the Titan power, she didn't become free, she became the world's most powerful prisoner. Her gift became humanity's curse. She used it to build kingdoms, fight wars, give her body to an empire that broke her spirit. Even after death, she couldn't escape. She lingered in the past, the airy cosmic sandbox, building titans for 2,000 years like an eternal unpaid internship. Seriously, the afterlife shouldn't come with shift work. But here's where things get poetic. Just like C2 found meaning through Lelouch, Ymir finds it through Eren, another broken soul who looks at the world and says, I'm going to destroy everything that destroyed me. For Ymir, Eren is liberation, the first person who understands her suffering. Instead of exploiting it, he gives her what she's been waiting for, permission to stop being a slave to fate. That's why she finally lets go, not because Eren controls her, but because Eren frees her. Freedom. Freedom is the one word that drives both series. Let's talk about Lelouch's idea of freedom and what it means to get there, versus Eren's the rallying cry of for every rebellion, every massacre, every tear-soaked monologue screamed into the void. And if anime has taught us anything, it's that freedom usually comes with a body count and a pretty fire soundtrack. For Lelouch, freedom isn't about chaos or breaking chains. It's about order. He doesn't want a world to exist without rules. He wants a world where he can decide the rules. To Lelouch, freedom means being unbound by tyranny, but also unbound by weakness. He wants to protect it from. He wants to protect the people he loves, and to do that, builds a cage big enough for everyone. He's not chasing liberty, he's chasing control, disguised as justice. Basically, Lelouch looked at the corrupt monarchy and said, fine, I'll build a better monarchy, starring me! That was terrible, I'm sorry. His idea of freedom is paradoxical. To set the world free, he becomes a villain. He takes all the hate, all the blood, all the weight, so everyone else can finally breathe. Lelouch believes peace is something you manufacture, like a lie told beautifully enough that people choose to believe it. In the end, he doesn't get to experience freedom, he creates it. He becomes a martyr, the ghost that lets other people live unchained. A man who conquered the world just to erase himself from it. And then we have Eren Yeager, the walking embodiment of don't tell me what to do. From the moment we meet Eren's idea of freedom is raw, instinctive, and emotional. He doesn't want to rule the world, he wants to tear down anything that tells him he can't. He's basically the kid that asks why so many times you eventually hand him the apocalypse just to make him stop asking. Eren's freedom is personal, a feeling, not a philosophy. It's the wind against his face, the open sky, the ability to move without fear. But when the world expands and he sees everyone else wants freedom too, that's when it all collapses. Because Eren's freedom comes at a cost. For one person to be free, everyone else has to lose theirs. So he decides the only way for everyone to be free is if there's no one left to fight back. He mistakes annihilation for liberation. And by the end, he's not fighting for freedom, he's running from a cage inside his own head. Eren doesn't just want to rule the world, he wants the world to stop hurting. Every revolution needs soldiers, the ones who believe in the dream before realizing the dream forgot to include a retirement plan. In Attack on Titan, we have the Survey Corps, humanity's wings of freedom. In Code Geass, we have the Black Knights, justice in matching uniforms and questionable decision-making skills. The Black Knights are an underground militia that started with 12 people, one masked genius, and an absolutely massive flair for the dramatics. Seriously, every meeting looks like it's a cosplay convention sponsored by a revolution. At first, they're a symbol of hope, the oppressed Japanese fighting Britannia's tyranny with courage, tactics, and the world's most theatrical leader. But here's the thing, the Black Knights were never free. They were always fighting under someone else's mask. The thought that they were liberating people, but they were pawns in the Lucius game of chess, sacrifices in service of his grand plan they were never allowed to see. When the truth comes out, it's brutal. They realize the rebellion was built on manipulation, and that the man they called Zero was never fighting beside them. He was 10 moves ahead of them. Now onto the Survey Corps. They start as humanity's last hope, the brave few willing to face death just to glimpse the world beyond the walls. They're explorers, dreamers, martyrs, and statistically about 5 minutes from dying horribly. From day one, their existence is a paradox. They fight for freedom but live trapped in fear. They idolize courage, but every mission ends in trauma. Joining the Survey Corps is like signing up for a travel agency that guarantees a one-way ticket to emotional damage. What keeps them going isn't victory, it's belief. Commander Irwin's speeches, Levi's resolve, Hanzi's curiosity. These are people who've seen hell and still march into it, because someone has to light the way for those behind them. But that idealism gets twisted once the truth gets out about the Titans, Marley, and the outside world. The Survey Corps aren't fighting for humanity anymore, they're fighting for what's left of their own purpose. By the end, they're not soldiers of freedom, they're survivors of an ideology trying to believe their wings still mean something after what they've burned. Two armies with one tragedy. Both groups start with noble ideas to fight tyranny, to save humanity, to reclaim freedom, but both end up realizing that freedom and truth rarely hold hands. The Survey Corps are betrayed by the universe, the Black Knights are betrayed by their leaders, and yet both keep fighting, because once you've sacrificed everything, what else is there to do? Let's talk about the Royal Half-Brothers. In Attack on Titan, you have Geass, the Beast Titan's daddy issues so deep, it might become an entire subplot. Then there's Clovis, Clovis Le Britannia, an emperor's son, whose biggest war crime is looking fabulous while doing absolutely nothing productive. Clovis is the poster child for every spoiled anime prince who thinks strategy is something you order the butler to do for you. He's sent as the viceroy of Area 11. He's supposed to manage Japan after Britannia's invasion, but really, he spends most of his time pretending he's relevant. If arrogance was a superpower, Clovis would have ended the revolution in episode 2. But beneath the perfume and ego, there's something telling. Clovis represents the complacency of Britannia's nobility. He's proof the system the Luz despises isn't just cruel, it's empty. He doesn't rule through conviction or ideology. He rules because he has to, because he can. And when the Luz kills him, it's not just fratricide, it's a declaration that bloodline means absolutely nothing when the world they built runs on suffering. Now, Geass, he's like if Clovis actually picked up a philosophy book and decided to emotionally ruin everyone instead of just disappointing them. Where Clovis represents ignorance, Zeke represents understanding gone wrong. He sees the world's cruelty. His answer isn't rebellion, it's annihilation. Zeke's portrayal of his parents isn't out of hate, it's out of belief. He buys into Marley's brainwashing, then rejects it. But instead of freeing the Eldians, he decides the only way to save them is to make sure they never exist again. Both brothers serve as mirrors to their protagonists' sin. Clovis is what Lelouch could have been, blind to suffering, warped in luxury, parroting the same royal hypocrisy. Zeke is what Eren fears becoming, a man consumed by logic. He kills his own humanity in the process. When Clovis dies to spark Lelouch's revolution, Zeke dies trying to stop Eren's apocalypse. Both deaths are quiet, tragic, reminders that powers of family and ideology are just different kinds of cages. Lelouch, aka Zero, and Eren, aka the End Titan. Two men who went from we need to change the world to fine, I'll just become the world's worst nightmare. It's not just cosmetic. He said Lelouch and bruised the broken frame fighting masses. Zero is everything Lelouch can be. Those old apparently allergic to subtlety. I mean, come on. Dramatic cape, glowing eyes, voice modulator. That just screams I have trauma. But behind that flair, Zero is a political genius. He weaponizes hope. He builds an army, not with loyalty, but with belief. Every rebellion, every speech, every gamble, it's all calculated theater. Yet the brilliance of Zero is also his curse. The mask gives Lelouch power, but takes his humanity piece by piece. Every victory costs him someone he loves. Every lie makes it harder to remember why he started. In the end, Zero isn't just a rebellion. It's a performance art piece about the weight of leadership, and when the final act comes, Lelouch doesn't remove the mask. There's a consume him. The world can finally have peace without him. That's the tragedy of Zero. He wins the war, not by conquering his enemies, but by erasing himself. Eren becomes God. Not the kind that saves, the kind that makes you wish you had one break. The final Titan turns Eren into something beyond normal politics, just rage, just grief, and the terrifying conviction that freedom is worth anything and everything. He doesn't fight for humanity's survival, he fights for its ending. It's not out of love, but because he sees no other way to Eren. The world is a cycle of cruelty, and if someone breaks it, it's willing to become, and if someone has to break it, it's willing to become the monster that does that. The boy who once dreamed of the sea ends up drowning the world to touch it. Where Lelouch sacrifices himself for peace, and he sacrifices himself for freedom. And both men, in their own twisted logic, both stories end the same. Two young men, both seem further than themselves, and realize but everyone is a hero to destroy himself. Lelouch takes all of the world's hatred onto himself, so that he can be born from his death. Takes all the world's hatred onto his path, so that freedom can be born from his death. The illusion, the self-commitment, the founding tenure of the reality of community, but both are necessary, because in their words, the people needed something bigger than hope. They needed someone to blame. One chose to eat a gun, the others to become one. Both men sacrificed themselves so the friends could become heroes. In the end, both stories come down to one impossible truth. Sometimes you have to be the villain so the world can have a hero. Lelouch is fun. The Zero Requiem is the ultimate magic trick. He becomes the tyrant he always hated, conquering the world, silencing rebellion, turning himself into the single enemy everyone can unite against. Then at the height of his reign, he orchestrates his own assassination, killed publicly by the masked hero, Zero, who's actually his best friend Sasaki. In that one moment, all the world hate dies with him. Every atrocity, every lie, every death, it all collapses into one narrative. Evil Emperor has fallen, the hero has saved us. Zeus dies, branded as the devil, but his death rewrites history so that Nanami Suzaku and all the people he fought for can live in a world that finally stops needing devils. And that's the brilliance and the tragedy of Zeus's plan. He wins by losing. He finds peace by being erased. And he dies smiling because for once, the lie finally worked. Aaron's death is the mirror reflection of Zeus's. No mask, no ceremony, just quiet inevitability. He unleashes the rumbling, wiping out most of humanity. That allows him to be killed by the person who loved him the most. Not for glory, not for forgiveness, but to make sure his friends, the Survey Corps, can become saviors of the new world. Aaron knows that the world will see him as a monster. He wants it to. Because only by killing him can his friends unite the broken pieces and claim peace. Zeus staged his death to cleanse the world's hatred. Aaron embraced his to concentrate it. Every masterpiece has its cheap copy. Code Geass has Attack on Titan. They're both stories about kids who looked at the world and said, if no one's gonna fix it, I'll burn it down and start over. Two masterminds, two monsters, two martyrs, and both just wanted to be free. Zeus gave his life so the world could believe in peace. Aaron gave his so the world could fight for freedom. Both built something beautiful out of tragedy, and both left us wondering if it was ever worth it. That'll be all for this video. If you like it, please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more. Peace.